Basketball is a multi-billion-dollar industry with millions of fans around the world. Hardcore NBA fans watch practically every game and appear to know almost everything there is to know about the players, the match venues, the gossip, and a remarkable array of behind-the-scenes anecdotes about their favorite players. Even the most dedicated fans, however, are unfamiliar with the laws of basketball. Here are some unusual basketball rules you've probably never heard of. But first, a reminder about our brand new giveaway. We're giving away a PS5 with a copy of NBA 2K22 and Madden 22. All you have to do is watch the full video, leave a like, comment the keyword hidden in the video, and make sure you're subscribed. It's that simple. First up, NBA players cannot be business owners. The first rule we have for you kind of makes sense, but is still quite an odd one at that. NBA players are wealthy, and many of them prefer to invest a portion of their fortune into another sports team. Kevin Garnett, on the other hand, was not permitted to invest in AS Roma, the football club. He couldn't since AS Roma's majority shareholder also holds a stake in the Boston Celtics. This is an odd regulation, and I doubt the referee ever calls it a foul during a game. Next, you receive a technical foul for calling a timeout when you have none left. Why should a team be penalized for calling a timeout if they don't have any? If the NBA feels the need to punish a club for calling a bogus timeout, they should either compel them to surrender possession or issue a warning. Now that there are so many new laws governing how many timeouts you get, the players can often forget about their timeout situation. It's a genuine blunder that can occur in the excitement of the moment. Just ask Chris Webber about his feelings on the subject. Now that the NBA imposes stiff punishments for a specific amount of bans, as well as significant fines, a technical foul has taken on a whole new meaning for players. And it's just plain foolish to continue to call them on it when this happens so much more often than you think. Up next, star players must play big televised games. One head coach's choice to rest his players during a nationally televised game that was meant to be an instant classic was based on this one rule. The San Antonio Spurs head coach Greg Popovich rested his key players because they didn't need to win that game to make the NBA playoffs. Not only did they lose, but they were blown away. It happened again and again during the season, even after the NBA front office asked him to play them. Head coaches have been required to use their star players in these key games since the start of this season. This will ensure that if people pay money to see LeBron James perform, they'll get what they paid for. Timeouts are a must in NBA games. During an NBA game, each team is given a total of 6 timeouts, which they can utilize at any moment during the game. There is, however, a catch. Teams must use 4 of the 6 timeouts and save at least 1 for the fourth quarter, according to the rule. If they don't, the referee will signal a timeout, and the team will be penalized with a technical foul. This rule has been preserved so that television networks broadcasting the game can use the commercial break to air commercials. Another rule, jump balls must always be on the right side. Players must ensure that they are lined up on the correct line of the court, facing the basket they are shooting into when playing jump ball. If the players are not properly lined up when the game begins, the referee has 24 seconds to call a foul, after which the game must be resumed. The game will continue if the referee misses the player's positioning or fails to call the foul within 24 seconds. Next, players aren't allowed to go past the three-point line during free throws. For fans, this is one of those rules that makes no sense. How critical was it to implement a rule prohibiting players from walking beyond the three-point line between free throws? According to NBA officials, the rule was implemented to aid in shortening games by keeping the game flow going. But, except for Russell Westbrook, who has become enraged by the rule, none of the players use this minor maneuver. Since his days at UCLA, he's had the same free throw shooting routine. He shoots the ball, walks forwards, and slaps his teammates' hands, then turns back to reset himself by walking to the top of the key and lining himself up again. However, since this rule has disrupted his routine, we've observed a decrease in his free throw shooting. He used to shoot 83% from the line throughout his career, but this season, when the regulation was implemented, he's shooting 73%. He puts it down to the rule that he despises. Players can also not talk to the free throw shooter. This rule was definitely a startling surprise for most. Many people are probably unaware that the NBA has a regulation prohibiting opposing players from conversing with a shooter who is shooting free throws. The defenders aren't allowed to raise their hands in the air at all. One of the first things a child is taught to do when standing in the lane for free throws is to do just that, because you're not allowed to guard the shooter. You raise your hands to distract them. It's never caused a problem, but during games, players continued to have less flexibility to perform things that 20 years ago would have become great moments for future generations. generations. Isn't it true that Michael Jordan used to shoot free throws with his eyes closed? He was addressing the other squad and challenging them. That was his game, and that moment will be remembered for the rest of his life. The next rule is titled the sixth man rule. The NBA used to have a regulation that enabled a team to field 6 players instead of the customary 5. Of course, teams had to be very covert about it, only bringing the 6th player onto the court if the referee was not paying attention. The points would be counted if the referee failed to notice the 6th man before the team scored. Next, we have the restricted area under the basket rule. Charging is another regulation that NBA players can't stand. The restricted area defined around and beneath the basket is the main reason they dislike it. Basketball has been dealing with this issue for a long time now. The concept that a defensive player must not only give up his body in order to take a charge, but must also ensure that he's not standing inside or touching the prohibited area. Referees in the NBA will always look to see if the defender taking the charge has a foot in the restricted arc, and if they do, they will immediately convert the charge to a blocking call, as that's the rule. If the NBA Board of Governors wants to add to that regulation by defining whether a player's foot inside the arc counts against him taking a charge, they should do so. Meanwhile, don't expect any players to tell you how much they enjoy the constricted arc beneath the loop. Next, commercial logos are only allowed on shoes. So, nowadays, you certainly can't do what Iman Shumpert did a couple of years ago and tattoo an Adidas emblem into your hair. The NBA slammed him for it, explaining to the media that they don't allow it because they might make up to $100 million from a sponsorship contract with Adidas to put their logo on players' uniforms. Imagine what the players would get for signing their own contracts if the NBA was talking about a 9-figure deal. To put it another way, the NBA makes all of its money from exploiting talent. That, my friends, is professional sports. Lonzo Ball is taking advantage of this restriction by launching his own shoe line, effectively extending the law to benefit him rather than the NBA. The players would all want to wear armbands with any sponsor they choose, but they can't, and as a result, many NBA players are missing out on what could be lots of extra money. Lastly, we have the one-and-done rule. There was no one more excited than NCAA men's basketball coaches about the one-and-done rule. That meant that the greatest athletes in the country would not be able to skip college and would have to commit to playing for at least 1 year at a college if they were under the age of 19. But that joy swiftly turned to rage, since the NCAA tournament was suddenly brimming with freshmen who were simply biding their time until they could declare for the NBA draft. The situation is illustrated by Ben Simmons. He exploited LSU to advance his career, then left and never looked back. He had an opportunity to make a break, but he chose to stay put, leaving the school perplexed. Most LSU supporters were overjoyed when he arrived, but soon after he left, they wished he had never come to LSU in the first place. He harmed more people than he helped, and the NBA players feel that the regulation is bad and that it has to be changed because a lot of these kids coming out of high school aren't ready in the first place. What's the harm in abolishing this regulation if they end up learning for a year or two before becoming a star? And there you have it, everything you need to know about some of the strictest and most bizarre NBA rules that players must abide by. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.